It was the way the pie was cut that did it. Not the affair itself, not the 1,000 invisible cracks that came before, but that perfect slice of pumpkin pie she handed to my father like she hadn't detonated our marriage in silence months ago. Thanksgiving. My parents' house. The air thick with cinnamon and the kind of tension only families can pretend doesn't exist. She moved through the kitchen like she owned the room, not with elegance, but with entitlement. Her smile was rehearsed, her compliments weaponized. I watched her from across the table, barely tasting the turkey. She hadn't looked at me all day. She leaned in close to my brother's wife, whispering something that made them both laugh. Their eyes flicked to me. My skin crawled. I didn't know why yet, but I felt like I was being laughed at. Not included, targeted. I had no proof. Nothing concrete. Just a smell. A hunch. A dirty undercurrent slithering beneath our home-cooked charade. Then my phone buzzed. A single message. No words. Just a photo. I stared at it for a full 10 seconds before understanding what I was seeing. Her. In a hotel lobby. A man I'd never seen before behind her. His hand barely brushing her lower back as they checked in. Her face tilted up toward him like the sun. Her suitcase by her side. The same one she said she packed for a team-building retreat in Chicago. The timestamp? 2 days ago. I felt nothing at first. Not anger. Not heartbreak. Just a vacuum. Like the world inhaled and forgot to exhale. I looked up from my phone and there she was. Pouring wine for my mother. Laughing. Helping my nephew find his toy truck. Living 2 lives in the same breath. I didn't call her out right away. That would have been too easy. Too clean. I waited. I watched. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd done before the storm hit. And then, just after dessert, when my father raised his glass to toast family and loyalty, I stood. The room silenced instantly. I placed my phone on the table and slid it slowly toward her. No words. Just that image. She glanced at it, blinked once. And then she did something no one at that table will ever forget. She laughed. Not nervously. Not guiltily. She laughed like she'd just been told a ridiculous joke. Then she looked up at me, wiped the corner of her mouth with a napkin, and said, "So what? That's your big reveal?" Gasps. The kind people only let slip when reality twists in a way they can't process fast enough. My mother's fork clattered against her plate. My brother stood halfway, uncertain whether to defend me or stop what was coming. And what did come, I'll never forget. She stood up, walked around the table slowly, the room holding its breath like a church after a blasphemy. Then, without hesitation, she slapped me. Not out of shock, not out of drama, but deliberately. Calculated. "You embarrassed me," she said, loud enough for the whole family to hear. "Dragging your paranoia into my dinner. You ruined Thanksgiving." I didn't react. Didn't move. Just stared at her. I saw it then. The real her. Not the girl I married. Not the woman I thought I knew. But something older, colder. A stranger who wore my wife's face like a mask. I realized in that moment that she never feared being caught. She expected it. Had prepared for it. And she wasn't ashamed, she was proud. She turned to my father and said, "You should teach your son how to be a man." That was it. I walked out. No bag. No goodbye. No explanations. Just silence and a door slamming behind me. I drove with no destination, the road eating the miles like fire eats paper. I vanished. Disappeared from everything. My job, my friends, my name. I became a ghost. But the world has a way of pulling you back. 7 years later, it did. And when I returned, I found out what happened to her. And it was worse than I ever imagined. 7 years passed like water slipping between fingers. Quiet, cold, irreversible. I didn't keep in touch with anyone from back home. I changed states, changed my last name, even picked up a new accent over time. I worked under the table jobs at first. Warehouse nights, kitchen prep, kept my head down, moved from place to place like I owed the world nothing and expected even less in return. I had no plan, no mission, just an unspoken promise to never let anyone humiliate me like that again. I thought I'd buried it. Her. That night. The slap. The laugh. The stench of betrayal that never really left my skin. Some nights it replayed like film on a projector I couldn't unplug. Thanksgiving frozen in amber. The plate. The photo. Her voice. So what? That's your big reveal? I tried to outrun it. Thought I had. Until the invitation arrived. A thick black envelope, no return address, slipped under the door of my tiny apartment in Denver. My new name, was written in perfect calligraphy. Inside was a card. Heavy paper, gold trim. You are cordially invited to the 25th Annual Founders Circle Summit, a private evening for the region's most elite entrepreneurs. There was no sender name, but there was a location, my hometown. I almost laughed. Elite? Me? I turned the card over. A single postscript in handwriting I hadn't seen in nearly a decade. You should come. People are asking about you. No signature. I stared at that note for a long time. Felt the pulse of something old and feral start to wake in my chest. Curiosity? Revenge? Closure? Maybe none of those. Maybe all of them. I drove there in silence. The summit was being held at the country club on the edge of town, the one with marble floors and a chandelier that cost more than my high school. I walked through the doors in a borrowed suit. No one recognized me at first, but eyes began to follow. Whispers stirred. Old faces, some stunned, some cautious, a few pretending not to see me at all. But they saw me. Every one of them. And then I heard her name. I didn't ask for it. I wasn't searching for her. I'd spent years not saying her name aloud. But there it was, carried on the edge of someone's breath behind me. Did you hear what happened to her? No context. Just that. A question dipped in awe and something else, something bitter. I turned. Quietly stepped closer to the group of men talking near the bar. She's not here tonight? One of them asked. Another laughed. After what came out, she wouldn't dare show her face. And then came the sentence that cracked something wide open inside me. She lost everything. And I mean everything. You didn't hear. I didn't speak. Just waited. Let the words crawl out on their own. Turns out, a year after I disappeared, she married the guy from the hotel photo. His name was Chase. Big-time real estate guy. The flashy type. Took her to Miami, bought her diamonds, paraded her around like a trophy. She looked like she'd won. For a while. But then came the scandal. Fraud. Embezzlement. 2 companies. 3 lawsuits. Turns out Chase had been building his empire out of lies, and she was right in the middle of it, her signature on half the documents. She tried to spin it. Claimed ignorance. Played the victim. But one thing about the world she worshipped, it loves you only while you're useful. The moment her name hit the papers, every door slammed shut. No more brunches. No more spot trips. No more power couple Instagram posts. Just silence and subpoenas. She tried to go back to her town. Rebuild. But people remembered. Not just the scandal, but how she'd treated people. The way she looked down on them. The slap. The Thanksgiving. She's living in her sister's basement now, the man at the bar said, swirling his drink. Can you imagine? And then he saw me. His eyes widened. The recognition hit like a wave. He whispered something to the guy next to him. They both turned. He began. I nodded once. That was all. And just like that, the room shifted. People I hadn't seen in years started drifting closer. Some smiled nervously. Others avoided my eyes. But the silence around her name? It stayed. Heavy. Tense. The fall from grace had been hard. Public. Permanent. And she had no idea I was back. Not yet. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed at a cheap motel on the edge of town, the kind with humming fluorescent lights and thin, scratchy towels. I laid on the bed fully clothed, staring at the ceiling while the same thought looped through my head like a broken song. She's still here. I hadn't said a word to anyone. No posts, no photos, no grand announcement. And yet, my presence at that summit sent ripples. The town was small enough that news would travel fast. If she hadn't heard already, she would soon. And something in me wanted her to. Not out of revenge, this wasn't about vengeance. It was something else. I needed her to see me standing, breathing, thriving. After what she did, after she tried to humiliate me into non-existence, I wanted her to know. She failed. By noon the next day, I had 3 missed calls from unfamiliar numbers and a text from a name I hadn't seen in 7 years. Lena. Lena was her younger sister, the quiet one, the only person in her family who ever looked me in the eyes with any real honesty. The text was short. She knows. She wants to see you. Don't do it. No punctuation. No pleasantries. Just those 6 words. I didn't respond. But I drove. Not to Lena's. Not to a bar. I went to the one place I had avoided since I disappeared. The old house. Our house. The one I left without locking the door that night. The driveway was cracked now. The garden we used to fake interest in had become a jungle. But the mailbox still had the same dent in the side. A scar from the time she reversed into it and blamed the wind. The house was abandoned. I walked around the side, found a loose board in the back fence, and let myself in. The backyard still had the ghost of a swing set, rusted and low to the ground. I stood there for a long time. Then I heard the voice. "You really came back." I turned slowly. She stood by the gate, arms crossed, wearing a faded hoodie and jeans that looked 2 sizes too big. No makeup, no shine, no mask, just her. No, not her. A shadow of her. We stared at each other for what felt like hours. Her mouth opened, but I cut her off. "You lost it all." Her lips twitched. Not a smile, not a frown. Something in between. "You here to gloat?" she asked. "I came for a funeral," I said. "Yours." That hit. She flinched. Good. She walked past me, sat on the broken bench by the old oak. "You think I got what I deserved," she said. "Maybe I did." I didn't answer, just stood. She kept talking. "He told me I was better than you, that I'd wasted my best years on a man with no ambition. I believed him. Didn't take much convincing," I said coldly. She looked up at me, her eyes not pleading, not apologizing, just tired. "I thought you'd ruin me when you walked out. But you didn't. I did that to myself. I waited. Let her speak. I lied to everyone. To myself most of all. Told myself I was trading up. That you were the past. That I deserved more." Her voice cracked. "Turns out I was the thing being traded." Silence. Then she looked me dead in the eyes. "Are you happy now?" And that's when I felt it, the twist in my gut. Not pity. Not satisfaction. Clarity. I walked toward her. Slowly. Deliberately. "No," I said. "But I'm free. And that's more than you'll ever be." I turned and left. No dramatic ending. No yelling. Just a quiet, permanent severing. She didn't follow. I didn't look back. The next morning, I got breakfast alone at a diner that hadn't changed a bit since the last time I was there. Same laminated menus, same bitter coffee, same booth in the back that creaked when you sat down. The waitress, a woman named Sharon who somehow looked exactly the same after all these years, recognized me but didn't say anything until she set down the check. "You were always too good for her," she said softly, like it was a secret. Then she walked away before I could reply. People remembered. That stuck with me more than anything. People remembered how she had smiled at them with her teeth while twisting knives behind their backs. People remembered the slap. Her eyes when she did it. Cold. Calculated. People remembered how she strutted out of that house like she'd won a war, not realizing she'd only stepped into another trap, one she'd built for herself. I spent the next few days walking through the town like a ghost in reverse. Instead of being unseen, I was noticed everywhere. They whispered. Stared. Some waved. Some avoided eye contact. A few tried to strike up awkward conversations as if nothing had happened. But I didn't stay long in one place. Until Mark called. Mark. My old college roommate. The guy who'd sent me the photo, the one that shattered the illusion. We hadn't spoken since the night I vanished. I never thanked him. Never told him what that photo meant. He was the match that lit the fire, and I left him holding the lighter. When he called, I almost didn't answer. But curiosity won. Meet me, he said. No hello. Just those words. An hour later, we were sitting in his garage, drinking beers like no time had passed. Except everything had. I didn't think you'd come back, he said. I didn't plan to. He nodded. You heard about her? I said nothing. He leaned back, exhaled. Man, after you left, everything changed. You were the glue, you know that? People thought you were the quiet one, the stable one. But without you, it all cracked. I wasn't sure what to say. I'd spent so long believing I was the one who broke everything by walking away. Mark looked at me and said, She told everyone you hit her. The words hit harder than I expected. For a second, I didn't even understand what he meant. She said you got violent that night, that she slapped you to stop you. Told her family, told some of ours. Claimed you had a temper. People believed her. For a while. I stared at him, blood rushing in my ears. She said that. Mark nodded. It was ugly, man. Some people defended you. Most stayed quiet. But then the stuff with Chase happened. Her lies started catching up. She tried to spin everything, but she ran out of people to manipulate. The rage didn't come. I thought it would. But all I felt was hollow. I should have known, I muttered. She needed to rewrite the story. Make herself the victim. She almost pulled it off, he said. But then Lena came forward. That stopped me. Lena? Mark nodded. Told the truth. Told everyone about the slap. About the picture. About everything. She said she couldn't stomach the lies anymore. I leaned back. Stared at the ceiling. I had disappeared thinking silence was my revenge. But silence had a cost. In the vacuum I left, she twisted the narrative. Built herself a shield out of falsehoods. And people bought it. Until Lena. I didn't know what to do with that. Gratitude? Guilt? I'd left that girl behind in the wreckage without even thinking. And she'd saved me in return. I need to see her, I said. Mark nodded once. She's not hard to find. She's the only one left still standing for you. And just like that, I had a new destination. Not revenge. Not confrontation. But truth. Real truth. The kind you can't rewrite. Lena lived on the east side of town in a modest duplex with peeling paint and a yard overrun by weeds. There were wind chimes on the porch that barely moved in the still air and a sagging swing that creaked when you stepped too hard on the boards. The place looked tired, like her. When she opened the door, I saw it all on her face, relief, regret, a quiet storm of emotions she didn't try to hide. She didn't speak. Just stepped aside and let me in. The living room was dim, the blinds half closed. No TV on. No music. Just silence and the hum of a cheap floor fan in the corner. She motioned for me to sit on the old plaid couch while she disappeared into the kitchen. When she returned, she was holding 2 mugs. Coffee. Strong and unsweetened. Just like always. I didn't think you'd come, she said finally. I didn't think you'd speak to me again, I replied. She sat across from me in a worn armchair that looked like it had been salvaged from a garage sale. Her eyes met mine, and for a second we just existed in that space, neither of us willing to poke the wound first. Then she broke the quiet. She told them all you snapped, that you screamed through the chair, that the slap was self-defense. I nodded once. I heard. I knew it wasn't true, she said. Even before the photo. Even before everything with Chase. I knew. Why didn't you say something back then? She looked down at her coffee, then back at me with something sharp in her expression. Not anger, not shame, but a deep personal exhaustion. Because she was my sister. And because I was scared. She set the mug down on the table, hands trembling just slightly. She had this way of making you feel like you owed her. Like disagreeing with her made you the crazy one. And I let it happen. I watched her wreck everything and still made excuses for her. But when you left, when she told people those lies, I couldn't stomach it. I started waking up in the middle of the night, wondering what else I'd stayed silent about. What else I let slide. She stood then, paced a little. Like her words were boiling to the surface faster than she could organize them. You know what she said the day you left? She said, he finally learned his place. Like you were some obstacle she'd removed. Like it was a victory. I didn't respond. There was no need. The silence between us was no longer about the past. It was about what we both carried forward. Truths we hadn't wanted to admit until now. She stopped pacing and faced me. I tried to find you, Jake, after the Chase fallout. After the lawsuits. After she lost everything. She was sleeping on my couch, drunk half the time, cursing everyone but herself. And I thought, maybe you should know. But I didn't have the right. You did, I said. No, she shook her head. Not after I stayed quiet. Not after I watched you walk into that trap and said nothing. But I did tell the truth. Eventually. I told everyone. It didn't fix much, but it stopped her from spreading more poison. I stood now, walked over to the window, looked out at the cracked sidewalk, the abandoned bike in the neighbor's yard. I needed someone to do that, I said, voice low. You have no idea what it's like to be erased. She came to stand beside me. I do, she whispered. She did it to me too, just in a different way. There was a long silence after that. Not awkward, not strained, just full. I'm glad you're here, she said finally. So am I. She looked at me, searching for something in my face. I didn't flinch. I wasn't that broken man anymore. I'd left him on the road 7 years ago, somewhere between shame and snow. What are you going to do now? She asked. I looked at her and smiled for the first time in a long time. Tell the rest of the story. I didn't sleep again that night, not from restlessness this time, but because for the first time in years, my mind was awake. Alive. Electric with everything that had been buried under silence and exile. The weight of shame was gone. In its place, a different sensation, purpose. Not to get back at her. Not to parade around town with some vindication complex. But to finish what had started the night of the slap. To reclaim my name. The next day, I drove past the bakery where she used to pretend to like the staff for appearances only to mock them in the car on the way home. The little lies. They'd been there all along. Not just in the betrayal, but in her every interaction, every curated laugh and backhanded compliment. She didn't just lie to me, she lied to the whole world, wearing a smile like armor. And yet now she was invisible. I hadn't seen her since the confrontation in the backyard. I hadn't even heard about her from anyone since. Until I passed the park. It was Lena who'd told me she sometimes came there in the mornings, hood up, sunglasses on, trying to blend into the background of a life she used to control. I stopped the car, got out, waited, and there she was, sitting alone on a bench. Head down, earbuds in, no pretense, no audience, just the version of her that never existed when she was still winning. She looked small. I didn't approach. I watched. Because there, on that bench, I saw the person she never wanted to be. Accountable. She was scrolling on her phone, aimless, chewing her lip. She had no clue I was there. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. I realized I didn't need anything from her anymore. Not an apology, not tears, not a single word. I had already taken back everything she tried to destroy, and she had nothing left to weaponize. She wasn't dangerous anymore. She was just done. I walked away, back to the car, drove straight to the courthouse. It was time to clear the final piece. When I walked into the clerk's office, the woman behind the glass asked for my name. I gave it. No one's seen you around here in years, she said, casually typing. Thought you moved to Europe or something. I moved on, I said simply. I filed for dissolution of everything still legally tying me to her. It wasn't about spite. It was about finality. I wasn't the man who left the Thanksgiving table anymore. I wasn't the man who let silence speak for him. As I left the courthouse, Lena called. You saw her, didn't you? I didn't ask how she knew. She's not the same, I said. No, she's not, Lena replied. But that doesn't make her harmless. She's still got that thing in her, that need to twist people. I know, I said, but she can't twist me anymore. There was a pause on the line. Then Lena said something I didn't expect. You should talk to your father. The words hit harder than anything I'd heard since returning. He's not the same either, she continued. He waited for you. He never stopped talking about that night. What she did. What you didn't say. I said nothing. You left Jake. But he never let go. I stood in the parking lot, phone to my ear, the afternoon sun cutting hard lines across the pavement. I hadn't spoken to my father since the slap. Since he locked eyes with me across the table and silently told me to leave before you break. I thought I'd never forgive him for not stopping her. For not speaking up. But maybe he hadn't forgiven himself either. I'll go, I said finally. And the moment I hung up, I knew what came next wasn't about her at all anymore. It was about the people who had stayed quiet. And the things that silence had cost us. My father lived in the same house. Same porch swing. Same cracked steps. Same damn wind chimes that clinked together like they were stuck in time, just like him. I hadn't stepped foot in that place since the night everything collapsed. 7 years. And yet the air still smelled like pine cleaner and old books. Like Sundays. Like family dinners before they turned into war zones. I didn't knock. I couldn't. My hand hovered over the door, useless, until he opened it himself like he'd known I was standing there. His face was thinner. Eyes sunken, shoulders smaller somehow. He looked older than his years, like regret had been weighing him down more than time. We stared at each other. No dramatic music. No slow embrace. Just two men looking at the wreckage of a bridge they'd both walked away from. "You hungry?" he asked, voice rough but steady. I nodded. He stepped aside. Inside, nothing had changed. The wallpaper, the rug, the same chipped salt shaker shaped like a bear. But something had changed, him. His silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was waiting. We sat at the kitchen table. He poured coffee into mismatched mugs. I expected small talk, maybe a joke about my beard, but he went straight in. I should have stopped her. The words were stiff, but they came out clean. I should have said something when she slapped you, when you showed us that photo. I saw the look in your eyes and I knew, but I froze. I didn't say anything. He looked down at his hands, which were shaking just slightly as he gripped the cup. I was raised to believe you don't interfere in someone's marriage, that you let people fight their own battles. But that wasn't a fight. That was a slaughter. Still, I said nothing. I told your mother later that I'd never felt smaller than in that moment. Watching her lie. Watching you stand there, humiliated. And doing nothing. I finally spoke. Why didn't you call me after I left? I didn't think I had the right. Silence again. But this time it didn't feel empty, it felt full of things we were finally allowing to exist between us. I thought you believed her, I said. I never did, he replied without hesitation. Not for 1 second. That girl always had a cruelty behind her charm. You didn't see it at first. But I did. I just hoped you'd tame it. I didn't tame it. I fed it. No, he said. You survived it. We sat there in that kitchen, two men who had failed each other in different ways, trying to figure out how to rebuild something neither of us was sure we had the tools for. He reached into the drawer beside him and pulled out something wrapped in a faded cloth. He slid it across the table. I unwrapped it. It was my old wristwatch. The one he gave me the day I got married. ID left it behind the night I walked out. I kept it, he said. Figured you'd come back when you were ready. My throat tightened. Thanks, I said, barely above a whisper. He nodded. We didn't hug. We didn't cry. But when I left that house, I wasn't the ghost I was when I walked in. I was a son again, a man with a name again. And just as I stepped off the porch, my phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. But the message made my blood run cold. She's trying to talk to the press. Wants to spin the story. Again. Claims you're the one who ruined her life. No name. Just that. And suddenly the story wasn't over. Not yet. I drove. No destination. Just motion. The hum of tires on old roads. The wind clawing through the half-open window. My phone screen burning in the seat beside me. Her fingerprints were all over that message. Even without her name, I knew. She was circling again. Wounded, yes. But not done. Some people, when they lose everything, sit quietly with the ruin. Others dig through the ash, looking for one last spark of power. That's who she was. Even now, stripped of status, reputation, money, she still thought she could spin the truth. To the press, to the people, to whoever would listen. She couldn't bear the idea that I had come back not to reclaim her, but to bury her story with facts. I pulled into a gas station outside town. Dim lights, a flickering sign, the kind of place that smelled like rubber and cold coffee. I sat there, engine ticking, mind racing. If she wanted a spotlight, I would drag the whole theater down around her. But not with lies, with the truth. I called Lena. She's contacting a local reporter, she said before I even asked. One of the new guys, young, looking to make a name. She's feeding him a story about how you left her with nothing. Claimed emotional abuse. Said you staged the hotel photo. I almost laughed. The desperation. The sheer fantasy of it. Why is she doing this? I asked, knowing the answer but needing to hear it out loud. Because you came back, Lena said. Because for 7 years, she had control of the narrative. And now she's losing it. I paused. Do you have the reporter's name? I already sent it to your email, she said. But Jake, be careful. She's not the same woman. But she's still dangerous. I thanked her, hung up, and opened the message. The name was Derek Colby, fresh out of college. Just joined the local paper that thought it was bigger than it was. I searched him online. Young, hungry, the kind of guy who'd take a wild story at face value if it meant clicks. I called him. He answered fast, voice eager. Mr. Warren? My old name. He must have gotten it from her. I hear you're working on a piece, I said calmly. A pause. Then, yes, actually. Would you like to comment? I'd like to meet. In person. You're only hearing one side. And that side is coming from someone under multiple fraud investigations. He hesitated. I could almost hear the wheels turning. Where? He asked. I gave him the name of a coffee shop in the center of town. Neutral ground. Public. No drama. I got there early. Sat by the window. Ordered nothing. Just watched. And waited. He arrived 10 minutes late. Nervous. Sloppy tie. Eyes scanning for a man he expected to look broken. When he saw me, his face shifted. I wasn't the ghost she described. I was standing tall. Clear-eyed. Solid. We talked. I gave him facts. Dates. Names. The hotel receipt from that night. The original photo with metadata. The legal filings from her and Chase's case. Lena's written statement from years ago. I laid it all out, brick by brick. A story too tight to dismantle. He listened. Took notes. Asked real questions. When he finally closed his notebook, his face was different. Serious. Not just chasing a headline anymore. Why now? He asked me. Why come back? I looked him dead in the eyes. Because she taught people to fear silence. And I'm done being quiet. He nodded slowly. Then left. I didn't know what kind of article he would write, if any. But I'd done my part. I told the truth. That night, just before midnight, I got another message. Blocked number again. This one just said, "You think this is over?" But it was signed. For the first time. AI stared at the message. Not because it surprised me, she'd always been the type to strike last, even after the crowd had gone home, but because of what it meant. She wasn't just cornered. She was cornered and watching. I was unmistakable. That smug little signature, as if she were signing a piece of art instead of an act of desperation. She wanted me to feel something. Fear, maybe. Anger. Anxiety. She wanted me off balance. She was used to being the one who ended conversations. But this wasn't a conversation anymore. It was the final act. I turned off my phone. Sat in the dark. Let the silence wrap around me like armor. Because the thing about threats is they lose power when you stop reacting. By morning, the article was live. The truth behind the Thanksgiving disappearance. Jake Warren breaks his silence, no flair, no spin, just details. Clean, sharp, undeniable. The internet moved fast. Screenshots of the hotel photo. Excerpts from Lena's statement. Even a snippet of the confrontation I described to Derek. The slap at Thanksgiving, the stunned silence, the words she threw like knives. He told it all. Balanced, brutal, honest. And the comments? They were a reckoning. People remembered. And people chose. She tried to respond. Of course she did. Some long, rambling statement on her barely followed social media. Playing the victim. Pity and distortion laced in every line. But it didn't work this time. Because now the facts were louder than her fiction. Then came the fallout. Her name was already radioactive after the Chase scandal, but this was different. This wasn't about business fraud or frozen accounts. This was personal. Emotional. She couldn't bully her way out of this one. Couldn't slap or lie or manipulate. People saw her. Clearly. I got a call from a lawyer that same afternoon. Not mine. Hers. I'd advise you to stop speaking publicly, he said, with a voice too smooth for someone who just watched their client burn. I laughed. Quiet but real. Tell her, I said, that I'm not hiding anymore. That she doesn't own the story. He paused. Are you looking for a settlement? Retraction? Compensation? No, I said. Just the truth. He didn't know what to do with that. No one ever does when it's not about money or revenge, but something deeper. Something final. I hung up. And for the first time in years, I felt clean. I visited my mother that evening. She cried when she saw me. Not dramatic tears. Just soft, steady ones, the kind that come from relief, not sorrow. We sat together in the living room. She held my hand like I was still her boy. Like the years hadn't calcified around us. I never stopped praying you'd come back, she whispered. I had to find my way back first, I told her. She nodded. She understood. We didn't talk about Ashley. Not by name. Just in shadows. In what was no longer there. The grip she had on our family. The shame we used to carry like second skins. I saw the article, my mother said finally. Yeah, I replied. I'm proud of you. Simple. But it hit hard. She left the room briefly, came back with an envelope. She sent this after you left, she said, handing it to me. I never opened it. Didn't think she deserved your silence. I opened it. It wasn't long. Just 2 sentences. You never deserved me. But maybe I never deserved you either. No date. No signature. But I recognized the handwriting. I folded it once and tossed it into the fire. Let it burn. The past wasn't mine to carry anymore. And she couldn't reach me now. A week passed. Then, too. The town moved on quicker than I expected, maybe because the truth, once spoken clearly, doesn't give people much room to debate. They had known something was wrong all those years ago. They remembered the slap, the photo, the silence. They remembered the way she smiled through it all like nothing could ever touch her. But now she was touched. And not by scandal or gossip, but by truth. Her power was gone. Her name, once used like a key to open doors, was now a locked gate people avoided entirely. And I was rebuilding. Slowly, but with intention. I didn't leave town. That would have been too easy. I stayed. Walked the streets. Looked people in the eye. I stopped being a ghost in my own story. I reconnected with people I never thought I'd see again. Friends. Family. Even some who'd stayed silent, ashamed now that they hadn't stood up for me. I didn't hold grudges. I didn't need to. The truth had already done its work. One evening, I found myself standing outside a bookstore I used to visit before everything unraveled. The owner, Mr. Delaney, recognized me right away. Still reading thrillers? He asked, grinning. Now I live them, I said. We laughed. It was easy, natural. Lena and I stayed in touch. We didn't talk about her sister. Not because it was forbidden, but because we didn't have to anymore. There was nothing left to explain. Sometimes we had coffee. Sometimes we didn't talk for days. But she became a quiet constant. The kind that stays after the storm has passed. My father called once a week now. We didn't say much. But that was okay. He was trying. I was too. That was enough. And Ashley? She disappeared. Really disappeared this time. No more attempts at control. No more messages. Her social media accounts vanished. The last anyone heard. She was living out of state, under a new name, trying to start fresh. But the internet remembers. So do people. Her name might be different, but her past would follow. Because that's what truth does, it echoes. Quietly, but forever. One night, I sat alone in the house I bought just outside town. A place with no memories. No shadows. I looked out the window at the empty road and thought about everything that had happened. The slap. The disappearance. The return. All of it. And I realized something. She had wanted to write the final chapter of our story. But I took the pen back. I didn't end her. I ended her version of me. And in its place, I wrote a new man. One who didn't need to hide. One who didn't need revenge. One who finally understood that walking away is power, but coming back and standing tall? That's something else entirely. So if you're reading this, wondering what to do after someone burns your world down, listen to me. Don't chase their apology. Don't fight for their shame. Don't wait for them to fall. Stand up. Tell your truth. And then walk forward. Because sometimes the best revenge is being untouchable.